What Hasan did with his money 7 months ago.
Itself around capital accumulation.
Okay.
Like every part of the inequality that you see.
What's an ethical way for you as someone who makes a lot of money to use your surplus money?
I just use it on myself, and I give a lot to charities and.
Right, but surely you have a lot.
I love how that is the exact same criticism that he has of billionaires and capitalists. That billionaires and all these people are losers because they just donate money to charity. I know we watched this a long time ago. We must have. I feel like I remember watching this a while ago. But like, what a stupid quote.
Left over.
I do, yeah.
So what's an ethical thing to do? Just keeping it for yourself is fine?
Nothing. Like I don't really spend much other than just like.
Well, I'm not asking you what to do with it. I'm just like theoretically.
Theoretically, could you do? I mean, I basically do what I've been doing, but at a larger scale now. You know what I mean? Try to support union funds, do fundraisers, and reinvest it into my own business, I guess, technically. Mm-hmm. But even then, it's like I just go off vibes.
Vibes. Okay, so lefties prefer vibes overall.
True, they do. They do.
Seems like we're cherry picking what we have to act on and what we don't. It just seems very convenient to me.
I think that the fundamental disagreement here is that you know, charitable donations is socialism is like kind of your perspective here. I don't want to put words in your mouth. You can correct me, but that's all I've heard from you. As far as like maybe you don't say charitable donations, you say systems. But that's kind of what you're talking about, and that is fundamentally not true, which is fine. It's still fine, though. You're right. I think it's a good thing to, again, uphold charity and try to do your very best to help others who are less fortunate. But if you're asking me as someone who, like, at least describes the concept of what socialism is, that is not true. What you're describing is just fundamentally just a 501c3.
I feel like there's a disconnect for you and probably with others as well in what I'm referring to, okay? And the only reason, okay, let's take my mental health care program as an example of this, since it's the only thing I can show you in this regard. That's on Twitch. That can help you understand this, okay? So ignore the charity aspect of what's going on there, okay? That's there. The reason I had to.
How does Train actually win the argument here?
As a streamer.
I don't think I want to listen to this. What Trey needs to say is, if you believe in the tenets of socialism and you think it's a positive way forward, what you should be doing is you should be using your money to invest in systems that can be self-sustaining and perpetuating in society as they would be in an ideal socialist society. So a mutual aid, like, here are a couple of things that I can think of right off the bat. I don't know about the legality of these things, and this is just coming off the top of the dome. But let's say, for instance, you invest in some sort of community infrastructure where everybody throws $10 or $20 into a pot every week for a neighborhood where you get like a beefy dude, maybe some guy that used to be a bouncer, and that's like your community guy that you call if something's wrong, right? Let's say that you're an ACAP person, you don't believe in the police, you don't like them, blah, 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 blah. Everybody pitches in 10 or 20 bucks a week, or maybe even 10 or 20 bucks a month, and then some dude is on call basically to answer if somebody feels like there's someone in their backyard, somebody they don't trust or whatever, and they can call that guy into the police. That'd be an example of something that's like mutual aid. You've created another, hopefully self-sustaining service that replaces a service that a capitalist society was providing you. That would be like an idea of mutual aid, I guess. Or it could be something like somebody, like you pay somebody in the neighborhood to grow like a little vegetable garden in the back, and then you buy vegetables from them, et cetera, et cetera. It's about creating kind of these self-sustaining ecosystems, or these self-sustaining systems that can be part of a greater ecosystem that more closely resembles the socialist society you'd want, rather than relying on capital invested products like ownership of all of that means of production to produce goods and services you need, basically, right? But socialists, I don't even think socialists believe this can work. When they all get rich, none of them ever want to do any of this. They all go and shop at like the biggest capitalist stores ever. They don't give any of this, and but Train just doesn't have like the vocabulary to push in that direction because he's not familiar as much with these terms, which is fair. I mean, most socialists don't know anything about it. That's why, again, 99% of socialists online that do mutual aid, when they say they're doing mutual aid, what they really mean is they're just doing fundraising. They're just donating money to something. They're not really doing mutual aid at all. A good example is the Black Panthers used to set up a school lunch program for black communities. Sure, or like the Mafia or whatever that used to run like trash services in New York or whatever, you know? Why do you think Hasan is so blatant with buying designer clothes and living in luxury, so to speak? Doesn't he care about his image in the eyes of socialists/leftists? No. He doesn't care about his image in the eyes of socialists. Socialism is his image, right? The socialist aesthetic is the hottest, sexiest thing right now. If we were living in Nazi Germany, he would be like the Nazi on the radio with like the coolest Hugo Boss. Was that the Nazi brand? I don't know. He'd be wearing those outfits or whatever. He doesn't give a about like socialism, communism per se. They're just the talking points that he echoes because that's like the sexiest aesthetic to wear right now. And obviously like designer clothes, luxury fashion, private planes, Burning Man, those things are all like part of that ecosystem as well. It's about like whatever makes you basically look like the coolest. And his body's like a billboard for whatever like the coolest ideology is, basically. It's essentially what it is.
Your material conditions begins and ends with consuming content, then, you know, you're
Which
not
guy
gonna get
who
anything
owns
done.
portion pronounces it wrong. Bonus mean. Clueless.
Wow.
And you're not going to feel the positive impact that you might have on your community or in your own personal life by engaging in these kinds of actions. So that's something that I try to instill in my audience regardless. You know, something I always repeat on my broadcast is that society prospers when old men plant seeds for trees that they will never sit in the shade of, right? I'm sure you guys have utilized this before as well. I think that is what's important. You're building blocks for a better future that you may never experience, or you may.
In all seriousness, no meme answers. Why do you actually think Hasan fans can hear this and not become self-aware of the absolute lunacy here? That's a really good question. That's a really good question. I would have to, it would be interesting to like grab like 20 Hasan fans as a focus group and be like, how do you feel when you hear this? I actually don't know. I don't know what the answer would be. Maybe because maybe a lot of them are really wealthy and privileged, so they personally identify with what Hasan is saying. And when Hasan releases himself from responsibility, maybe it releases them from responsibility too? Maybe? I don't know. Yeah, ask RTBA. He's a big Hasan fan. I have no idea. I'm not sure.
Never enjoy the fruits of.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think also something that Hasan's community has done really well, and socialists online in general, this is probably, you could probably classify this as cult behavior. They're very good at developing their own jargon and jokes to avoid criticism. That one comic is really good. Somebody linked the comic. You know which one I'm talking about. The We Should Improve Society Somewhat. Like, people have taken this comic, like, hey guys, shouldn't we do something? And they're like, oh, well, you participate in society, curious. I'm very talented. Like, they've developed a lot of good jargon and kind of humor to deflect from all criticism, so it makes it easier to kind of reinforce said criticism as well. Or to reinforce like defenses from said criticism as well. And then you don't have to actually think about it.
At the end of the day, it's two things we have to be aware of. The first one is to make sure that at the end of the day, capitalism commodifies everything, including what would be considered to be quote-unquote revolutionary content, which this isn't. This is entertainment, but you know what I mean. Leftist content. In essence, becomes a commodity, regardless of whether we can help it or not. Even if none of it was absolutely monetized, like this was completely done just to have the information out there. In the same way, they would form the same processes behind it. The fact that it would become like, oh, a figure that then has the drama behind it, all that. So that's one thing we have to keep in mind. But number two, and I think more importantly, again, not to take it so seriously. If you want to take politics seriously, then you take politics seriously in your real life, day-to-day activities.
I feel like Hasan's revolutionary answer varies depending on who he talks to. Or do you maybe think he's exhausted by this political character he has to uphold?
I don't know.
Here is just to entertain yourself, number one, kind of to educate yourself.
Bro,
but at the end of the day, the same.
No, exactly. That's the thing. Like, okay, here's one thing I'll say.
Yeah.
People get so mad about how much money I make, or what I'm doing with the money, even though I do a lot of fundraising, I do a lot of donations, even though like I think charity is not the end all be all, obviously, and there's plenty of issues with 501c3s and all that.
Yeah.
No need to have that conversation on this podcast of all places. But people get so mad about the amount of money that I make when it is literally voluntary subscriptions. Like, that is my revenue strategy. It's the exact same as like people with Patreons. It's the exact same with people with Substacks. Half the time the people chirping at me are literally people with Substacks. They just don't have any subscribers. Like, that's the only difference.
Damn, the jelly haters.
Like, the way I'm generating income is identical to the way that they are trying to generate income while they're angry. And that's what I try to explain to people regularly. We're like, you don't even need to pay a subscription. Everything is free. Not only is the content free, but the IP in and of itself is free as well. If you want to use it, if you want to watch it, there's like 1,000 fan channels out there that, you know, cut and re-upload this content. Sometimes don't even edit it at all. They just like literally pump it out. And I see a lot of value in that. The reason why I see a lot of value in that is not because like that audience expands and then they come back and watch me and then subscribe to my channel or anything. But my goal always is to get this kind of information in front of as many people as possible. So that's why I do it the way I do it. And I think it's probably one of the most ethical ways that you could do it, at least from my perspective. I'm not exploiting anyone. You know, I do work with some people, and the revenue share structure that we have is they're very fond of it with some people, and the revenue share structure that we have is they're very fond of it, at least, you know what I mean? And but it doesn't really matter.
There's no need for you to explain or to attempt to. I know that's not what you're doing. You're just trying to give context, but like all of us know, we don't owe anybody an explanation in these things.
You're creating, and that already one of the concluding questions we can go into that you, as with a few others, answered before I even asked them, and making my job extremely difficult here with you. But not that's I guess the biggest fear of what we do to an extent.
People are saying not 1/3, but it's higher.
Is that when we create the and people consume the does that increase their, you know, anti-capitalist fervor, or does it indirectly placate it? Because, you know, they sat down today, they watched this video, they listened to the stream, they, you know, read that blog article or whatever type of content that you're creating, and that already gives them enough of a feeling, you know, the gut feeling that, oh, for today I've done, quote unquote, my part for the ideas that I would like to espouse into the world and to manifest and to materialize, etc., etc. So it's kind of a scary question to ask ourselves, because we actively, you know, encourage real life activism, agitation, organization, and so on from one perspective, from one side of the coin. But then from the other side of the coin, similar to like literally like bourgeois elections, you feel you only go once every 4 years. You put in that little tablet,
good one, hamster
choice,
hawk,
or the paper in the box, and it gives you the sense that, oh, I've done my part for my community for the next 4 years. You know, the scary question is, do we, to a certain extent, by creating the stuff that we do, contribute to a very similar problem? And the only, like, it's not really even a question, because you know you subjectively can answer this, blah blah blah, but only time will tell if there is any actual you know, material contribution that comes that goes towards the movement, the ideology of, you know, our poster making, or if it's quite unintentionally, to an extent,
During
reactionary.
there needs
You
to
get
be
what I
name
mean?
tags, please.
No, I totally understand it. You're saying you're asking if we are also playing a role in sedating the masses,
Exactly.
despite our best efforts to instill class consciousness. Because people think that it is a revolutionary act to consume a piece of content that, you know, or even like read theory, I guess, which would be the more advanced version of this. And I don't know, I would categorize it not even as theory, but as just entertainment, really. Like, I don't ever think about it like that at all. I don't think about like whether or not this is, you know, stopping people from like genuinely engaging in this kind of action, because I don't think that a lot of these people would even know anything about socialism in general if it weren't for someone
Like
trying
me.
to slowly I guess I hate this term, but bread pill them. You know? So for me, like I said, it's not that serious in my, like from where I'm standing, I talk about so much dumb over the course of 10 hours, depending on what part of the broadcast you're tuning into. Like I'm playing horror games and you know what I mean? Like I don't live my life as though like every single moment and every single point of my output is supposed to be like socialist Jesus, you know?
Of course.
I think that it's important to have fun.
Again, and it's so boring. They don't actually engage with anything. It's just like, this is the world that Pisco wants, okay? You're talking about self-defense and he's talking about blades of grass, you know? No, but it's like, it's annoying that they won't engage with any subtle critique ever. It's like, do you ever worry? And this is actually, and I feel bad because this Hakeem guy apparently is a tanky, but like, it's a profound question. Well, profound. It's a good question. Do you think that the consumption of this media might placate people's drive to make revolutionary change, right? Should I get active? Should I go and do something? I didn't watch Hasan's stream today, you know? I did something, right? That's an interesting question. And Hasan's response is, oh, am I supposed to be socialist Jesus 24/7? Am I supposed to do things our way? Blah, 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 blah. Like, it's like, it's so, it's such a, I don't know. It's so crazy. It's just funny because never mind. For myself, their thought process is just incredible to me. It's an incredible thought process. I feel like a normal person would feel such a moral calling given Hasan's like wealth and capability and opportunity that like you'd be perpetually plagued with guilt of like, am I doing enough with like everything I've been gifted? Like, am I actually making a big enough change in the world? And then for them, it's like, oh, I have to be perfect. I'm just like, come on, dude.
I'm not, you know, I'm not a leader in the movement. I just do entertainment.
Like, how sad are you when like your largest voices online, your biggest voices online say they're not leaders in your movement? I'm not a leader, not a revolutionary. I'm just a guy that likes nice cars, big houses, and nice clothes. Like, Jesus.
If there is more value in that entertainment for someone that feels like their worldview has changed, and that's great. That's definitely a goal. But ultimately, it's educational entertainment, edutainment.
Absolutely fair enough.
Very, very nicely put.
You know.
Was it nicely put? Really? Okay. Okay, Dad.
I do.
I appreciate that, Destiny.
All right, bye. Remember to hit that like and subscribe, and don't forget the notification bell so that my videos show up right in your feed.